Welcome, welcome to another episode of Accept, Then Achieve. I'm so delighted to have our guest speaker today here with us. Could you introduce yourself?
Hello, Tony. Yeah, I'm Isabel Lamar, and I'm really excited as well to be here with you today to bring probably a little bit of a different point of view on this topic. Yes.
Yes, and thanks again for coming on. Where can you describe what kind of work you're doing, where you're from, and where you're located now?
Yeah, beautiful. So, yeah, I'm originally from Europe. I'm half Italian and half Bulgarian. I currently am in Ibiza. Like I've been living in Australia for 13 years and I just sold everything and came back to Europe. So I'm in this transition. And what I do, I support women and also couples. My work is a lot about intimacy, embodiment, relationships, and empowerment. So I do bring these aspects together.
I love that. What an honor. How did you get into that sort of work?
Oh, it's been a bit of my life journey. I will say that on one side, there's this piece of empowerment that for me it's really big because I don't recall any woman in my family really feeling empowered. It's always been more like having what needs to be done, being like a good wife or things like that. So, and I've never really seen anybody really standing and cultivating their dreams and their passions. So for me, it's been always really big.
Mhm.
And on the other side, all the theme around intimacy, sexuality, and relationships, it's really close to me because, again, like from my childhood, there's never been really big intimacy. So I don't come from a background where, as a child, I was heard. Even as an adult, I'm not heard.
Oh my gosh. I can relate. Yes.
It's not just as a child, like, but there's this piece of intimacy that's it's broken. So for me to really learn that there's another way of relating, that it's where you like connect with people, where you can love people, where you can welcome, beautiful relationship, beautiful intimacy, and to get to experience that, to open up to real love in my life has been a big part of my journey. And something that I really want for every human, in whichever way it comes, for them to experience, because it's so precious. There's nothing that moves me as much as love. It's like, wow.
Wow, me too. And that's why I'm a relationship coach as well, because I also had a little difficult of a childhood where it's just culturally and I think experience difference wise, was hard for our family to show our love in a healthy way. And so that's definitely affected how I can relate to others too for such a long time. So, beautiful journey. I love that we're doing this work is so important because yes, I do believe love is one of the greatest things and most difficult things or experiences. It's not even a thing, just yeah, experiences we can have in our human existence.
Totally, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what inspired you to come speak on this podcast?
I love the title of your podcast, and I was like, yes, I really resonate with it because we are living in this world where there's all this pressure about achieving, about getting somewhere in a certain amount of time without really honoring our different needs and how time works differently for each one of us. And also finding that it's really masculine the way, like it's really old fashioned the way of like achieving. It's really like set goals and get there, set goals and get there. And
Right.
I find that really exhausting and not natural because it doesn't honor us as human beings through our inner cycles as we go through like cycles of expansions, cycles of contraction, of descent, cycles of integration, cycles of birthing, it's all about blossoming, blossoming, blossoming. And I'm like, this is really not natural. And when I read the title of the podcast, I'm like, yes, this conversation is so much needed. So it's an honor for me to be here connecting with you today about this topic. And I also feel like how that is connected with this piece that's a work a lot between and around the feminine empowerment and sexuality. Like I feel like there's a really strong connection to this.
Oh, I love that. Oh, how so? Could you talk more about the cycles and that connection?
Absolutely. Well, I find, as I was sharing before, like when we operate in the masculine way, it's always like about doing and pushing. But
Mhm.
when we honor like the naturally cycles of birth that we have within us, like women, men, it doesn't matter which gender, like the natural cycles of birth, of like how we come, we become curious, we learn, and then we try, and sometimes maybe it's not aligned, maybe like we need to align even better, and how we do these cycles, and then we do blossom eventually, and sometimes things come to an end. And
Mhm.
then sometimes it's so hard for people when they've created something to let go of it because
Mhm.
the attachment of stay there when maybe they need to go for process of death and rebirth and create something else, something that it's even more aligned because we all keep growing, all keep growing.
Absolutely. I love that. Just normalizing that there's the cycle. You don't need to be this blossoming productive all the time. If you're more in that other, that's like, as you said, a death cycle, even to not feel ashamed or bad about yourself that you're doing that is that, yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like how that it's also connected with our erotic energy, like our erotic life force. It's the same like the earth, like has this energy that's it can create thunderstorms and eruptions, and then it goes for stillness. And
Mm,
when we learn to honor that there's periods of slowness, there's winters where our body naturally comes more into like a closure, pausing,
mm,
resting. And then when we honor that and really listen instead of try to push, because in the moment we try to push something that it's not happening, we actually leaking life force.
mhm,
We are letting go of our truth and our power. And
mhm,
in the moment that we actually honor that and pause and really listen to the timing, to the right timing of when something wants to come. And the more we're present, we can actually listen to the little things that maybe we need to adjust, the little realignment internally, so we can blossom even more and trust that stillness, it doesn't mean that it's not success. Like stillness, it's
absolutely.
like the abundance that we can create when we honor our cycle, it's much bigger than when we push. It's way bigger.
Wow, it's amazing. Do you have any specific, like I know it's hard to explain in just the 30 minutes, but it's how can people start honoring like their cycles? How do they know? Because I imagine each cycle is unique in the pacing and the quality for every person. So just generally, how is that process of figuring out, oh, am I pushing or is it time to rest? Or because I feel like, at least me personally, when I feel like in the periods of rest, I still struggle with letting go of some of the guilt regarding it because sometimes I feel like I've been resting for 2 years, 3 years. It's like, when will I get the little oomph to go again? Because it's can feel very comfortable to just be like, all right, I'm just going to cocoon in this stillness. And I think that was my fear when I was hustling a lot, just the fear of becoming stagnant or not growing, even though I love trusting that we're always growing. We can't stop our growth.
It's a really beautiful question, and it's something that I feel like it changes from person to person a little bit, but something that really I could maybe recommend to your audience is that really learning to listen to yourself and stay in that fine line between rest and curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
Like, stay curious, like in the moment that we don't know what we're doing next. Let's say that we're going through like a death cycle and we don't know what we're doing next. Or like maybe we've got ideas, but nothing, it's a full yes yet in our body. It's really like staying in that playful curiosity of maybe like learning, listening to podcasts, perhaps like having also that conversation with depends what you believe in, like God, the divine, or like just like a bigger force, and being that curiosity of being trusting that there's guidance everywhere. That you can inquire, okay, what is next? And maybe you go to the library and you see a book that really lights you up, or maybe you watch a movie and there's a message in there. Like, how can you stay in that rapt curiosity? And it's almost like you have one step back and one step ready to go forward at the same time. So you're like there in the dance. So you're not fully flopped, like not fully like let go of like, okay, I'm not doing anything.
Mm-hmm.
Allow yourself to rest. So you don't push to do anything, but just stay curious. Like you become almost like a child again. You're like curious of like, okay, what can I learn? What is there? What is present for me? And you're like there in that openness, I will say.
I love that. And I think that's one of the most powerful natural drives we have, that curiosity, that feeling, oh wow, this lights me up, this excites me, and just this deep soul level. And yeah, rather than being like, oh, I should do this or I should continue on this. And that's more of the pushing kind.
Yeah.
What do you do when they feel like they have multiple paths they're called to
I
next?
have
How do
that
you
all the times.
transition? Too
I
much
have
abundance.
so much abundance. It's interesting because I mean, I'm not gonna go there, but in my human design, like I'm a manifesting generator, so I've got lots of energy and lots of passions at the same time. And sometimes it's like, which way should I go? And I will say that I don't pride myself to do just one thing. I can do like a couple of things, but I really feel what it's a bigger yes in my body. Like learning in our body what it's a yes.
Mm-hmm.
And yes usually feels like, for me, yes feels like an expansion. It feels like you don't question it. You might scared of it because sometimes we take big leaps of faith in our life and just fear, but it's not something that you keep questioning every day.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yes, you know it. It might be really scary, but you know it that you have to do it. When there's like maybe some things that's like in there that I want to do, maybe it's just not the right timing. So it's not a full yes in that moment. I just put it on the side and trust that there's something else that it's more of a yes, or a bigger clarity will come, perhaps.
I see. What does a half yes or a partial yes feel like then?
A partial, I have lots of those as well coming. Usually a partial yes, it's like yes, but it's not fully. And in myself, I find that partial yes sometimes is just a matter of timing, that is not the right time to do something.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe there's something needs to change slightly. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
you've got an idea. I'll give you an example. I need to launch this program by the end of the year. And it's a full yes to launch the program, but there's something that it's not quite fully aligned. And trusting that maybe it's like a timing thing. Something needs to be changed. No, sorry, that is the timing. Or maybe something that you need to adjust something. Maybe it doesn't need to be I don't know, program, but it needs to be a mastermind. I give you just an example to give clarity to the people. But yeah, partial yes, it's like, there's something that it's not quite aligned, but we are getting there.
I see. Wonderful. And what does a no feel like?
I know I feel for me, it's like either a straight no,
Mm-hmm.
it's clear. It's like, no, sometimes people ask me, do you want to do this? No. It's like, it's like, yeah, no.
That's wonderful.
And I can't lie. I am really good at lying to myself sometimes. I'm trying to convince myself that it's a yes when it's a no, but that is another story. I think that's human and people do
Yes,
it.
yes. I'm terrible at lying to others too.
Totally.
Word, but the internal lies all day. That's
To do it to ourselves, it's much easier, right?
right, right.
Um,
Only
how
will
to be
know.
radically honest. Yeah, I know usually it's a no, and or as I shared before in the example, it's something that I keep questioning. It's like there's I keep
Mhm.
questioning, and it's not out of fear. It's out of usually it's in my mind, like when you just look, but maybe something, and you just like go all over again, like. Finding excuses or ways and stuff, but that's it's not a clear yes. That is not.
Mm, I see. Great. And for some of our audience members, they may have difficulty even connecting with their bodies at all if they may feel totally numb. What advice would you give them on how to start connecting with their bodies and their intuition and their wisdom?
Yeah, beautiful question. Um, it's interesting because when I work, somatically with my clients, I always find that underneath of numbness, there's actually so much energy, life force, and sensation. And for me, it's like, how can you stay present and curious with your numbness? Like sometimes we're like, I numb, and we naturally have our coping mechanisms. Often numbness, it's a way of avoiding like what is underneath because it might be too much. So sometimes numbness could be also a sign of it's too much.
Mhm.
Other times it's a sign that yeah, maybe there's something that it is too much, but it doesn't mean that it's not ready. It's just our coping mechanism that blocks us from feeling what it's underneath. It's just a strategy that we have implemented subconsciously through our years. So I will say with numbness to stay curious and maybe to move with numbness or sound with numbness. So let's say I'm feeling numb, like how numbness wants to make me move in these moments. So maybe I like to do a little like shoulder movements. So maybe I get frustrated that I feel numb, so I express frustration. I go like, ah, I don't like this numbness. And give it a voice. So stay curious with how numbness make you feel and
Mhm.
start to connect with that feeling as a way of then creating some spaciousness and see what else is there. It's always that playfulness of curiosity, what else is there.
Hmm. Oh, beautiful. Yes, there's what if, sorry to ask more about that, but I guess what if they do that, create the spaciousness and still comes, nothing else comes up in that moment, then just keep the next day, try again, create spaciousness and
Keep doing it.
Mhm.
Sometimes if the body has been blocked for a long time, it takes a while. So
Mhm.
it's like, you're training your body to feel something that hasn't allowed itself to be felt.
Mhm.
And of course, it's really easy when we do it by ourselves so that we find excuses. I'm not good, I'm not doing it right, I'm not good at feeling. Like we can find
Mhm.
all excuses like when we're by ourselves. And I often see that when we're doing it with somebody else, with some professional, it becomes different because they can track that, they can support you through it. But
Mhm.
already to express and to move, you're already doing something. You're already creating spaciousness in your body. Whether you think it's gonna take you somewhere or not, it doesn't matter. You're already doing it. So, like I feel any form of somatic expression can create, the next step itself. Like you're already doing it.
Mm. That's so beautiful. It's so true. You're already breaking your old pattern and doing and trying something different. I love that. How did you add somatics into your practice, or could you share more on how your work has become what it is today?
Yeah, totally. So, well, the first piece, like my work was birthed from, I entered this world of like health probably about 13 years ago. And I started to study different healing modalities, Zentai Shiatsu, Ayurveda, like all different things. And then I had a bit of a hard episode, but my brother took his life 8 years ago.
Gosh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah. And I feel like that was like a big change in my life because it got me into actually, first of all, wanting to heal my grief. And also, I started studying therapy after that, like wanting to understand, like actually realize how toxic my family was. Like nothing wrong about my family, but I realized that there were lots of things. There's a reason why he's not here anymore. There's, of course,
Mm.
like, so I did my inner healing and I studied therapy for some years, and then I didn't know where to take that journey. And my therapist, like one of my biggest therapists, she was a somatic experiencing practitioner in the top of it. So all the work I did myself, as a patient, as a client, like there was a lot of somatics. And then when I studied my course of sex, love, and relationship coaching, the whole training is deeply somatic. It's all somatic. It's like all the processes for different, modern therapy, tantra, and all other modalities that support us to heal all these pieces from the body so we can create new different pathways in the body to um, heal and to attract as we want to, or how to live in a more healthy way. Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry you went through such hardship with that and for your brother, but I think there. I mean, I don't know. I guess if everything happens for a reason, but I guess I'm glad there was something beautiful that came from that. Would you um, be okay sharing a little more about the toxicity in your family and how? And do you still have a relationship now with them, or do you have one with some boundaries?
I have some boundaries. That's probably the best way of putting it. I think it's really unconscious, the sort of toxicity that is in my family, because there's not any way of taking responsibility from the other side. So it feels like um, really hard because it's always like, how often they say that people go in therapy, they go because there's somebody else that is not going in therapy that is
Yes.
they're relating to. So that's fully my case.
Too.
Yes. So yeah, I feel like it's yeah, some of it it's like because I don't like giving labels to things, but there's definitely like a very big disconnection, and there's like the way they relate, it's so toxic. Like there's always like daily screaming, like blaming each other,
Mm.
it's not so the environment that I'm used to live anymore for many years. So it's quite big, and it's not conscious. There's not awareness. There's almost like there's really not awareness on their side.
Mhm.
It's hard because I know they're doing their best, but it's hard to like. I feel the only way we can have a relationship, which have a partial relationship,
Right.
it's with this with clear boundaries. Yes.
Hmm. I see. And would you be able to share what those boundaries are, like limited time and
Yeah, totally. Like simple things, like for example, if I go back home, I'm not staying with them.
hmm
And if I see them, I try to see them in neutral spaces. So it's not a place where there's like that's already charge that comes from maybe like past experiences, or whose house is like who feels like safe or not safe, like all these pieces.
hmm
time boundaries as well, like how often we connect, or like what it's needed in order to have like a connection and conversation. And other boundaries, they change as we go, as we grow. Like, sometimes there's some boundaries that need to be clarified again. And yeah, but I feel like those are the main boundaries. It's around the time and space, probably.
Mm, thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Um, I think because many of the listeners also might have toxic families or elements of toxicity in their families. So I'm hoping this podcast could help them recognize what is not okay, if it's making them feel bad and there's no acknowledgement from the other side. Or with at least my family, they never apologize, they never acknowledge, lacking that entire self-awareness. And I related a lot to that book, Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents. If you haven't read it yet, I
And that's just the title, it's saying yes.
yes, yes. And they were saying, yes, as you said, we can only have a partial relationship with somebody who is not present or unwilling to acknowledge when they hurt us or to self-awareness to look at themselves. And they described it as it's just a state of relatedness. It's not a true relationship because the relationship needs to be a two-way street. And I really loved that description of it.
As you say, that's something that comes to me, like, which is probably the strongest boundary that I have, which is not voiced with them, but it's this piece of like letting go of like the fantasy that's maybe some parts of me, more like my inner child, of the expectation that one day they're gonna change or they're gonna be able to meet me.
Hmm.
And really stay present in that with my own grief, and taking care of that really tender part of myself that sometimes still has expectation that it comes and goes, but sometimes I would love for them to be able to hold me as I would love to be held. So
Mhm.
like taking care of these parts myself and giving them another environment where they can receive that.
Mm.
And that's not to bring these fragile parts of me in that connection. It's
Mhm.
a boundary I need to have with myself, because sometimes like every time I've done it, even if it's been just a little bit opening that door, it's been really painful. So that it's one of the strongest boundary where they're not really involved in it. It's just my own internal process.
Right. Oh, I so relate to that too. Yes, and just being ever eternally hopeful or optimistic that there will be some change. But yeah, we just set ourselves up to reopen that wound and to be hurt again.
Yeah.
We do that. Well, how do you tend to those fragile parts of you? If that's not too.
Totally, no, no, no. It's I feel like it's a constant dance, like um, yeah, like usually I hold them when they need to be held. I do have somebody in my life that I feel really safe to expose the most deepest of my vulnerability, and I feel extremely safe and know that this person can help me to hold these parts where I need some external support with that. So that feels really beautiful to have this in my life. Lots of therapy,
Yes.
lots of words, lots of constantly working on myself and be clear. Sometimes, like even I go there, like recently I moved from Australia to come to Europe, and it was really clear for me that I wouldn't go back home until I found a house for myself and I felt grounded, because I needed that for me to feel like I landed. I'm feeling better, like in my whole emotional being. Now I can go then and really like taking care of these needs.
I see. I ask because if there's any, maybe an exercise or a practical suggestion for the audience on something that they can try out to care for themselves or nourish themselves right after listening to this. Is there
Oh, there's,
any that
I mean,
could be
there's
described?
use some art therapy sometimes to connect to these parts and give them voice and understand what are their needs, so that it's something that I do sometimes. But I also have like bears that they represent that part, like the soft parts of me. And
Hmm.
sometimes when I'm really soft, like just holding that, like, and feeling like my little girl, that means that's holding and being there, present, and just telling things to her, like, you're safe, like, I've got you.
Hmm.
It's fine, like, you're not doing anything wrong, like, I'm here with you.
I love
I
that.
love you, you're safe. So that those are really um, simple practices, but making sure that your adult self, like your observer, it's there present. At the
Hmm.
same time, allow yourself to feel these fragile parts, and knowing that there's like the adult self part of you that can hold the more fragile parts.
Mm. See, thank you. Thank you. Um, and I and one other question is, I guess, your moments that were most challenging for you, or was there a rock bottom moment? How did you get through that and move through that
Mhm.
period in your life, or if there were probably several periods?
That's an interesting question, because one of the core pieces of how I healed my grief, and I keep healing like patches of grief in my life. I'm not talking much about my parents, more like about my brother, perhaps, or my inner grief when I go through patches of like the inner depths.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually a lot to do with my sexual energy.
Mm.
So it's not by going out and having sex with people. It's not that at all, but it's actually allowing myself to feel the pain as much as the pleasure, because they are really similar forces.
Mm.
So for me, it's been, especially around my brother, it's been like, it's actually when I had my big sexual liberation, because I actually allowed myself to explore my body differently and to learn that the more pain I was experiencing, the more pleasure I could experience, because I was in that threshold between death and, I was in that really subtle energy in that moment. And my big question when he left was, there must be something more to life. Like, I kept saying that to myself, like, he's gone, like nothing makes sense right now. It must be something more for me that I haven't tapped into yet.
Mhm.
And as a teenager, I've gone through depression and anxiety and food disorders. Like, I've had my own spam of life of things. And at the time, like, I was connecting with a few women, not like much personally, but friends on Facebook that they were like doing this work with sexuality. But it was when it was not as much as big as it's these days. It was still like just, it was rare that somebody was speaking about sexual healing on the internet at the time. And I remember seeing these posts saying like, you most likely haven't even tapped to the amount of pleasure that you can really experience. Like, there's so much that your body can experience that you probably are not even aware of. And I was reading these posts and studying tantra by myself, and I was like, wow, so this curiosity really opened up. So I used tantra to heal lots of my grief. So I was really allowing not just for sexuality, but also for like the somatics. Like, if I was feeling pain, I was allowing myself to really go into like expressing it, like really like feel the core of that energy in my body. And it was really, it's funny because grief, it's so alive.
Mhm.
For me, there's nothing that is more alive than grief, because you feel so much, so much. So there's so much life force to it. And
Mhm.
for me, to really allow yourself to feel the pain, it is also tantra, which it's connected to pain, pleasure, sexuality, all of it, lifestyle, all of it.
Wow.
Feel like that has been a big part of my healing, to explore. Like, if I can feel so much pain, I'm definitely be able to experience the opposite. But like, there's this duality in life that we can experience the most biggest pain and the biggest bliss at the same time. So it's been a bit of a journey for me, which
Wow.
opened the curiosity for my studies. Yeah.
I never knew that. Thank you. I never knew they were so closely related, the pain and pleasure and the duality. Wow. Thank you. Oh,
I'm actually about to record a podcast episode on my podcast about this piece, especially how to heal grief through sexuality. So, like, I will share because I feel right now in the world there's so much grief happening.
definitely.
Yeah, I feel like it's time to share that journey because I never fully done it. A little bit, but not fully. Yeah.
Wow. Well, thank you. That led to my last two questions, and we only have a few minutes left here, 3 minutes or so. But just, yeah, how can people find you and connect with you? And just any last words or biggest pieces of advice or you'd say to your younger self or the audience, or anything else you'd like to share as we close out?
Hmm. I will say probably like if there's a piece to give to the audience, it's like I know sometimes to feel can be scary.
Mhm.
There is nothing more powerful you can do for yourself and more liberating. Sometimes it's the thought, the fear of feeling that creates even more fear than not what it actually is when we allow ourselves to do it. So find ways that feel safe for you to allow to open up to that because the aliveness that there is there and the potential of life, of expansion and pleasure when you allow yourself to honor your cycles, honor your emotions, so powerful, so powerful.
Love that. Thank you so much. And how can people find you?
Yes, so you can find me either on my Instagram, which is Isabel, which is spelled Isabel, double underscore Lamar, Lamar, or on my website, which is isabel-lamar.com. And yeah, I also have a podcast called Claimed Pleasure and Leadership. And that's also something that you can find Spotify and things.
Wonderful. And we'll put everything into the show notes too. Thank you so much again for coming to the podcast today and sharing your experiences and your wisdom and your energy. It's been such a nourishing time together. Thank you
Thank
again.
you for the gifts you're bringing into this world and this beautiful work. I feel like it's so much needed. Like your message, as soon as I read it, I'm like, this is so beautiful and powerful. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. And thank you. Yes, we're both just empowering women, empowering everyone. Just, yes, to just feel their emotions. Just, yes, just enjoy this human experience together.
Totally, totally.
Right. Well, thank you so much again, and hope
Thank
to have you
you.
again next time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye.